our monthly Friends of San Diego Architecture talk. Before we start, we're going to have Michael Leonard's architectural moment about exoskeleton buildings.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Hi, can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Good. I really don't need the mic. I've been doing this kind of thing for a long time. I'm Michael Leonard. I'm one of the board members of Friends of San Diego Architecture, and I wanted to share with everybody that a couple of weeks or a few weeks ago, I had an actual architectural moment while I was looking online about stuff. I came across a photograph of a building that just blew me away, and it sent me on an internet search to find out more about it. It is billed as the first exoskeletal building, true exoskeletal building in the world. Now, exoskeletons, as it's got here on the definition, you can see that exoskeletons are usually with smaller structures. Architecturally, we had buildings at first that were only 1 or 2 stories that were just built on the walls. The walls were all that supported the building. As buildings got taller, we needed to have them built with physical support on the inside, just like humans are. In biology, as in construction, skeletal support is heavy. Therefore, in biology, exoskeletal creatures tend to be small, insects and sea creatures, because the gravity is less. And in construction, humans just as naturally went in the same direction, especially as our structures got taller. So in that internet search, I found out, and excuse me, some of these are from the net and they were very small, but I just wanted to include them in this little informal show. And this is an idea of how we build tall structures with our skeletons inside, the construction skeletons inside. So anyway, I found out that exoskeleton buildings have been around for a while. The first one, 1964, the Alcoa building in San Francisco, designed by Skidmore, Owings & Merrill, one of the earliest buildings to use seismic bracing in the form of X-braces and external trusses. Now, I never even thought that this was exoskeletal. It just seemed like a design thing to me. And this is what I learned in this internet search. SOM also designed this Oracle building a year after that. No, 64 also. Then we have the John Hancock, also Skidmore, Owings & Merrill, and even in San Diego. Extra points if you know what building this is.
MTS.
Right. It's the Metropolitan Transit Center right down here on 12th Avenue. Also, World Trade Center. I didn't know until I went on this search that these vertical pillars are actually support mechanisms. And then we have something like this, the Pompidou Center in France, designed by Richard Rogers and Renzo Piano, not only exoskeletal, but also a lot of the guts are on the outside. No matter what you think about it, it's an example of an exoskeletal building. And here, a little bit more recent, is the Neo Bankside in London, also designed by Richard Rogers. Interesting thing about this is that it's been described as a generic glass silos. Sorry, not A. It's been described as generic glass silos wrapped in the trademark steel bracing. And you can see the steel bracing is the same stuff that they used in 1971 on the Pompidou Center. So he hadn't changed in more than 40 years. During the internet exploration, I saw this building online. And I thought, wait a second now, if this roof line is supporting all the internal stuff, then isn't that an exoskeleton building? And then I thought, what about Quonset huts? Is that an exoskeleton building, especially if it's supporting stuff on the inside? Well, I guess it kind of could be. But these are all partial exoskeletal buildings. Even the wonderful geodesic dome of Bucky Fuller. Isn't that an exoskeletal structure? I kind of think it could be. Okay. Meanwhile, let's get to the structure that actually caused my architectural moment. This is the Morpheus building. It's 500 feet tall, 40 floors above ground, 770 hotel rooms. It was designed by Zia Haddad Architects and opened just earlier this year in Macau. And that was the thing. I saw the announcement of the opening. It's part of a development called the City of Dreams. This is the whole City of Dreams, a resort containing hotel, casino, aquarium, shopping, dining, entertainment, including the Bubble Fountain sculpture and the Dancing Waters Aqua Theater. Doesn't that sound great? Morpheus Hotel, described by the firm as the world's first free-form, high-rise, exoskeleton-wrapped building. It's built on the foundation for a condo that was decided that they shouldn't use that, and ZHA used this existing foundation and extruded the building up from it, creating a sculpted structure in part inspired by jade carving traditions. The building is fundamentally two separate towers connected by tunnels and a walkway down here and another one up on top. And as you can see, these forms, the exoskeleton, are supporting all of the glass underneath it. Mirroring the outside structural elements, the interior, well, I'm sorry, here's more of a close-up on this marvelous design that they've got here. Just astounding. I'm still blown away by this. That was my architectural moment. Mirroring the outside structural elements, the interior is just amazing. It's got all of these pieces here that come on into the interior. And here's a restaurant. Now, this restaurant, as a matter of fact, is on one of the bridges. It's actually here on one of the bridges that goes from one side to the other. And this is a view looking straight up. And the pieces here, those are elevator banks. And then this is one of the bridges going from one side of the building to the other. Night shot. Now, more than a singular striking structure, however, ZHA has said that the unique parametric design, quote, will radically change how our built environment is planned and constructed. And true to this prediction, ZHA has already designed and is under construction 1,000 Museum in Miami, Florida, 62-story, 700-foot-tall condo tower. Are you ready for this? This building will have only 83 super luxury condos on 62 floors. Are we talking expensive, folks? Now, of course, this is only the second building of its type in the world, so you know the technology is going to get cheaper as it goes on. But meanwhile, as far as I'm concerned, this is looking at design of the future. And I want to go back to, whoops. There we go. This is, as far as I'm concerned, is looking at design of the future. And speaking of future, today, by the way, is the anniversary of the beginning of the rocket age. This date, 1926, Robert Goddard launched the first liquid fuel rocket. So let's go now from architecture of the future to architecture of the past. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I have no idea what What do these buildings cost, by the way?
The architect, Zaha Hadid, passed away a year ago. She was a Pittsburgh award-winning architect, and it's unfortunate that the world of design has lost Zaha.
Oh, thanks, Michael. That was fantastic. How much should we bet on how much each one of those condos is going to go for in Miami? It's just, yeah. Get in there before the sea level rises. Well, anyway, I'm Roger Scholey, and welcome again to our monthly talk. It's going to be one of the best of the year, I think, for a project that's been talked about for 30 years. Before I get to that, I want to introduce representatives from the Open House San Diego to chat a bit about the program coming up on March 23rd. Suzanne and Carol, or do you want to come over and remind everybody about how they can participate?
Can you hear me without the microphone? Yeah. Okay, good. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Okay, so I'm Suzanne Freestead, the founder of Open House San Diego, and we're branding ourselves as San Diego now. And our program is next weekend, March 23rd and 24th, at about 97 sites.
97 at this point.
Right, throughout San Diego. When we started the program in 2015, we opened 36 architectural and urban design sites in downtown and Baker's Hill and Barrio Logan. Now we're up to about 97, 98 sites. And this year we're expanding into La Jolla. So that's why we have Salk Institute on the cover of our materials. I have allergies today, I'm not contagious. At any rate, just a quick little background about the Open House program. It was founded in London by Victoria Thornton about almost 30 years ago. And it became so popular, it spread to other European cities and then to New York and Chicago. So when I founded Open House San Diego, New York and Chicago were the only other cities in the United States that had the program. And since we started San Diego, Atlanta, Georgia implemented the program. So we're kind of special to be the third city in America. And combined, we have 46 cities now. Combined, we're the world's largest architectural festival. So if you go to openhouseworldwide.org, you'll see all of our cities and when they have their open house programs. And if any of you like to travel, even if you go to one of our sister cities and it's not their open house weekend, be sure and contact, if you're interested in the architecture of that city, be sure and contact them and they'll put a little itinerary together for you. So it's just a wonderful program. And to me, as a native San Diegan looking for a way to give back to my city, this really resonated with me because here we can take an international program and apply it to our city. And it's truly a community program and it's volunteer driven. And now we're under the umbrella of the San Diego Architectural Foundation. So this is our 4th year of doing this. And when you register at one of the neighborhood hubs, you can get a guide. They're beautiful. And if you want to see the guide right away, we have an electronic version for free at sdarchitecture.org. And also on this side, we have an electronic version. Did we all get maps? Mm-hmm. Okay, so mind you, there are both sides. We have La Jolla and Point Loma on one side, and the rest of the neighborhoods on the other side. So when you attend, the first thing you do is go to a neighborhood hub and register, and you'll be given a little passport. It's kind of a fun little thing with all the numbered sites. And as you go around, you can, to each site, you'll get your passport stamped. So it's a nice memento of the day. And for the first time this year, we have children's activities. We have Kids Sketch that is at a couple of different sites, and it's architect-led. And then we have a photo competition with prizes. And in the front of the guides, we have our photo winners from last year too. And we also have an app, don't we, Carol?
Yes.
And by the way, this is our program director, Carol Chen, who many of you know.
I just want to say a few words about the mobile app that we have, and I'm excited that we have it. I'll stay afterwards if anybody, I can show you the features of it, and that's a handy way to have it with you as you're visiting sites for open house.
Right.
All right, well, thanks.
How many of you plan to attend? Yay! And how many of you are signed up to volunteer? Thank you, we appreciate it. And I just want to let you know we have over 300 volunteers and we need more. And so if you're interested in volunteering, taking like a morning or afternoon shift on Saturday or Sunday, see Carol and we'll get you all signed up and trained. It's a big effort. And I want to thank Catherine and Mike and Roger for supporting me, giving me moral support through this whole journey. It's really been quite an endeavor. We're meeting wonderful people throughout San Diego. So thank you. And Carol, did you have
yes,
something more?
just come up to me afterwards. I'm dressed like how you'll see volunteers throughout, the city with our T-shirt.
If you volunteer, you get a free T-shirt.
And so I'll stay after, and you can talk to me.
So we have yellow bags instead of yellow vests, right?
Well,
San
we'll
Diego.
have different bags that you can purchase. These are volunteer bags. So, but thank you, Roger.
All right, sure. Oh, they forgot to tell you, if I didn't catch it, that this is all free, so it doesn't cost anything to participate, and it's growing every year. So this is a great addition to San Diego. One other, I wanted to give you a preview of next month, which will be a talk about what brutalism is and isn't by architect Ken Hunker from the New School of Architecture and Design here. So be sure to not miss that on April 20th, same time at 9:30 on that day. Now today we have a team of people, Kevin Heinley and Perry Deely, who are going to give us the latest on the Manchester Pacific Gateway project, which has been in the works, as I said, 30 years. I remember covering this when the Navy first made this agreement to provide its property at the foot of Broadway in exchange for a Navy building. And it's taken all this time to finally break ground. If you've been down to the foot of Broadway, you'll see this gigantic hole that I guess a Noah's Ark could fit in that. It's just fantastic. And you can ask them, how do they keep the water from seeping in since it's on filled property? Kevin is the managing director of the Gensler architectural office in San Diego. He's grown the team from 20 to 100 people over the years, and he's also been active in local organizations from the Downtown Partnership to NAIOP. And just a background is he earned his Bachelor of Arts in Architecture from Lehigh University and Master's in Architecture from the University of Maryland. And Perry Deely is the president and CEO of his own company, private development with a lot of experience in managing projects of over $3 billion in his 44 years career. He went to the University of North Carolina, which is where the president of New School is from. He was involved in many high-profile projects in San Diego, like the Grand Del Mar, and I remember him on the project of 4th and B. That was when we first met in the 80s. And Perry's been very active in numerous things in San Diego, including currently the River Park in Mission Valley, the San Diego River Park. So let's have the two gentlemen come up here and tell us what they can about the status of the project and how it's coming along. Thanks for joining us. Kevin, here's your...
Is this, this is now active. Everybody can hear me okay? Yeah. Well, first, it's an honor to be here because I've got a lot of faces of people that I haven't seen for a while. A lot of also individuals that have a good history of this project. So How many people have lived in San Diego for at least 20 years? Can you raise your hands? See, that's quite a few. I'd say at least more than half. So good. And not that that matters a lot. It just gives me a sense of, you know, this project goes back 30, I think, as Roger said. But what we'd like to do this morning, Kevin and I are going to tag team in a little bit. But, and by the way, there's no bigger, more positive friend of architecture than Roger Scholey. So, first time I met Roger, he came right in and started to get into the depth and details and challenge and put me right on the spot for an interview he was doing for the UT. But it worked out well, and we developed a friendship, and we've been not always in agreement, but usually, and I love his passion. But
and his wife Carol is a heck of a doubles tennis player.
Yes, that's right.
She and I played in a tropical mixer doubles tournament and won it 2 years ago. So.
Roger and Kevin and I are members of the San Diego Yacht Club. So what we're going to do, we're going to show you a video, and I think that kind of sets a table of the project. Then I want to go into a little bit of the history, and then Kevin's going to run through the entire architectural elements and character and some of the design criteria that he's been working with, and some of the prescribed elements that were in the development agreement, which was negotiated 30 years ago between the city and the Navy. And then we'll go a little bit into the construction phase, and then we'll open it up for questions. So we probably have about a 20 to 30 minute at max presentation. So hopefully we'll keep you motivated, we'll keep you interested into the project. It's only the biggest project. You know, I know Petco was kind of public-private, but that was for a ballpark, and then the support development. This is pretty much all mixed-use development. So in that regard, it's the biggest development probably in the history of San Diego, $1.6 billion. But I'll let's go ahead, Kevin, we can roll the video, and then we'll just take it from there.
And if it's okay with the audience, I like to field questions as we go, because sometimes there's a slide on the screen that kind of encourages a question. So if you guys like to interrupt and ask questions as we go, that's okay too. So let's run this video. Let's see.
And by the way, it really was NC State. If you went to NC State, UNC Chapel Hill, you got to make sure that that's it's like going to Berkeley or Stanford. You got to, there's no, but my graduate degree was both schools. Even I did go in my graduate school for both.
Most projects are a single building, a series of single buildings makes up a block, and this is over 8 city blocks. It's a marvelously large integrated project.
This is Arthur Gensler speaking.
That feeling of a place. You just don't go to a building, you go to a place, and it's going to have a really strong impact on the community. And those are the kind of projects that I dream about.
Yeah, this property is the last great piece of property, in my opinion, in the entire United States, but for sure on the west coast of the United States. It has been blighted for 40 years, and it now has the opportunity to be turned into something incredibly great. As a big project deserves, and as the city dictates, and the location and the fiduciary responsibility that this project has for not only this generation, but future generations of San Diego, is to create a landmark, a world-class project, both architecturally, both in terms of mixed use, and in proximity to where it is in the urban fabric.
Downtown San Diego really continues to enjoy a tremendous resurgence. Look, just in the last 10 years with the expansion of the convention center, the new Petco Park, our North Embarcadero Visionary Plan, the success of the Gaslamp Quarter. It's one of the most unique, vibrant downtowns that you'll ever find in any spot across the country.
San Diego's population is growing among the fastest cities in the United States, and San Diego has more millennials by way of percentage of population than anywhere in the country. And that population, more than any population, is coming back and migrating to the urban core. As San Diego's economy has grown, as its community has grown, it's drawing in more of an international visitor, it's drawing in more of an international business community, and it's really drawing in a higher end of tourist, higher end of business leader, higher end of projected investor. $8.4 billion is spent directly in the city of San Diego by visitors, but the broader economic impact of that money is almost $20 billion.
Unfortunately, there's an 8-block barrier connecting downtown to the waterfront. And in its place is going to be offices, hotels, retail, a museum, entertainment, places for kids to play. It'll be a great working environment and a great place for the public.
You know, when you talk about premier waterfront sites in San Diego, this has to be at the top of the list. I think this project, in a way, is going to redefine an amenitized office experience, a way to link you from your office to these amenities that are right next door, the retail, the food and beverage, you know, the opportunity to take a client to lunch, you know, steps from your front door without having to get in the car and drive somewhere.
Besides the office buildings, we are building 2 hotels. The first one has 1,200 rooms, a perfect fit for conventioneers and leisure guests. The second hotel has 200 rooms in a very charming European style. Both properties have state-of-the-art restaurants, lounges, pools, ballrooms, spas, entertaining venues. We're very excited about this.
We're very fortunate that our hotel, the Grand Del Mar, has been voted the #1 resort in America. So the team that we have assembled from hospitality is fantastic.
Manchester Financial Group is really the right team for this project. It's a complicated project. It's got multiple facets. It's a big project. They need somebody who can understand and handle the scale of this project and what it's going to mean for San Diego, what it's going to take to develop it and build it and lease it and operate it correctly. And Papa Doug and his team are really an outstanding group of operators. We're really excited to work with them and develop this specific project.
The Manchester Pacific Gateway project offers that unique blend and synergy as we're going to have world-class companies right here on the waterfront, right next to our Navy Region Southwest headquarters. We're so proud of our military here in San Diego. You know, it's part of what we're creating in terms of special places.
The entire development team that I've assembled over the last 30 years has built San Diego Marriott Hotel and Marina, the convention center, and of course the second largest Hyatt in the world, the Manchester Grand Hyatt.
Manchester has been a leader in developing the waterfront in downtown. This is going to be the last missing link in creating the whole urban fabric, embracing the downtown to the waterfront. And the great thing about it is, it's going to be the best 8 blocks in the history of downtown San Diego.
I've always said San Diego is America's finest city. You have 90 golf courses, basically almost 100 miles of beaches, climate at 72 degrees all year round. It has it all.
I invite you to come check out the Manchester Pacific Gateway and the host of world-class amenities that we have right here in downtown San Diego. It's an exciting time. We're open for business, and we're just getting started.
So it didn't take us very long to get here. I think, as Roger said, you know, when the Navy decided that their 8 blocks they had on the waterfront, where originally it was all full of buildings. I think we have that one Navy shop, the history shop, but it was full of warehouses. During right after World War I, the Navy headquarters was built on Broadway and Harbor Drive. That building is still there. It was basically designed as a kind of a warehouse that evolved into their offices. So if you ever were to walk into that building, you got exposed, you know, on the inside, not the outside, but exposed everything. It's like you're walking into a battleship. You got pipes and, you know, ductwork, and it just, they don't have any technology to speak of, yet that's the headquarters of the western part of the United States Navy. They just never have had money. All the money that the Defense Department generates is to support warships and troops. So office facilities are at the bottom, maybe a fence every now and then, but they're at the bottom of the food chain for military spending. So this building, even though they've had a need for it for 30 or 40 years or longer, has just unfortunately not been able to have been redeveloped. So what the Navy did, they wanted to do a public-private approach. So what they did, you can see first before I get into the public-private, now that this is up, you can actually see in the 30s, 40s, and 50s how these warehouses, and the warships would come in during World War II, and they would load all the supplies on the warships before they went out to the Pacific Theater. And that's why a lot of the warehouses and storage facilities were built on the 8 blocks. You wouldn't know that in the last 20 years. Most of them had been torn down. But during Korea, Vietnam, they also used it to load the ships there as well. And then post-Vietnam, you know, there hasn't really been a big Pacific Theater war thing. Most of it's been in Afghanistan and Iraq and in the Mideast. So the demand for this facility has been eliminated as far as the military is concerned. So what they decided to do was to take their 8 blocks and put in and say, if we sell those 7 of the 8 blocks to a private developer, they would then build us a new office building to get to 7 blocks. So it's an 8-block parcel. The Navy would keep 1 block, and the developer would get the other 7 blocks. So they started meeting with the city probably 35 years ago. They came to an agreement in 1992, I think it was, Roger, but it took a few years before the agreement was approved. And they thought they could immediately go in and start the redevelopment cycle. Well, 1992, you know, they did the EIR. It was because it's federal land. It has a NEPA, which is a National Environmental Protection. They agreed to do it in California because that was part of the agreement with the city and the Navy. So they did a CEQA. Because it's on coastal land, I mean coastal influence, even though it's exempt because it's federal property, it still sits within the coastal zone. So they agreed to work with the Coastal Commission as well. So with good intent, good spirit, they had downtown organizations and groups way back when. Don, I think, was there, and Roger, you know, when all this, I was there too, actually, yeah, when all this was going on. And they came up with a development agreement that defined how the project could be developed. That would be setbacks on each of the blocks, how much program could be there for hotels and office. There was an agreement that no residential could go here, so it had to be hotel program, office program, and a support retail, which you could put, you know, some of the office and hotel scope into retail. They had a dedicated 40,000 square foot museum space, and they had some amenities. You had to put E, F, and G Street in. You had to build a 1.9 acre park. You had to, can I just finish first before, because this is what we were talking about, is there's slides that you want to, but let me finish at least that, and then before we go into the next section, we can answer questions on the history and how this whole deal came together. So anyway, 10 years later, back in 2002, the Navy put an RFP out. It took them that long for the market to recover a little bit and for everybody to agree that, okay, this project should go forward. Now the EIR was done, all the approvals were done, Coastal Commission. So Doug Manchester, I was working for him at the time. I was president of his development company. I did the Hyatt Phase 2 for him, and so while I was working on that, the RFP came out for the Navy. So having been involved with that before I went to work for Manchester in my previous business relationships, I said, let's go after it. And he said, I don't want to go after any waterfront property that's not already entitled, all the approvals are in place. I said, Papa Doug, back then it was Doug, by the way. I said, Doug, you know, everything's ready to go. The EIR is done, the EIS, everything, coastal, all done. He goes, all right, well, let's try to go after it. So the first call I made was Art Gensler. I called Art back in, 2002 or 2001. I said, we want to go after this. And he said, Perry, let's do it. I'll put some good designers on it, and let's go. And then so we had other local consultants helping us, and so we put together our package, submitted it to the Navy, and we were selected. And it was a pretty good national group of developers. There was the Irvine Company, Clark Realty, Shea Properties, among others that were competing. There was about 8 companies that competed for this. And Manchester had done the Marriott, did the Hyatt. He had a lot of history on the waterfront, coupled with his financial plan that he gave, so he got picked. So now we're ready to go in and start working with CCDC, who was the agency designated to manage the development agreement, which restricted setbacks, heights, uses, all of the prescribed program. So we had a very tight design criteria that we had to work with. Couldn't go too high. We had to step the buildings north to south, east to west. You know, all of those things that fit the project in based on the criteria outlined with the city and the Navy in '92. So that went forward, and then the first lawsuit hits. So we didn't think much about it, and you know, we went to the lower court and we prevailed, and then it was appealed. Then the second lawsuit hits. The first lawsuit, I believe, was CEQA. The second lawsuit was NEPA. And the third lawsuit was Coastal Commission. So we had 3 lawsuits going separately and simultaneously. We prevailed on every one. And the CEQA was finished, but the NEPA kept getting appealed. And I'll get back to Coastal in a minute. But the NEPA got appealed all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. I mean, it took 11 years to go through this process. And why Manchester agreed to stay with it as it was going all the way up the food chain, I don't know, but we did. And in hindsight, it was painful because it's expensive when you have to carry all these costs and then defend the lawsuits. And the U.S. Supreme Court said that it didn't have any merit, and they refused to hear it. So that ended the legal challenge. Getting back to Coastal, we negotiated with Coastal instead of adjudicating it. They were ready to appeal it again, and we went in. And this is a benefit, I think, of the project. And they asked us to do certain things in the project to get their support, and we did. So in hindsight, with Coastal at least, it improved the project. The NEPA and the CEQA would just basically challenge the original environmental documents. Coastal, they added things in to actually help the project from a pedestrian level, how visitor serving uses would be integrated into the project, things of that nature. So that's kind of the history of the legal battle, and then so from the history standpoint, why don't you, if you had a question?
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt it, but why, and if it's not appropriate, we can move on, but why was there the stip that it's no residential?
Well, that's a good question. And certainly if there was residential, we probably wouldn't have won it because the valuation of residential on the waterfront would have been off the charts valuable. And we were not residential developers. You know, we're hotel and office developers. But the main reason is that was an agreement because on the coastal tidelands, within San Diego Bay, that's a state lands commission that oversees that, and they have restrictions that it has to be visitor serving uses. Residential is not considered a visitor serving, that's more privatized. And so the public can't, you know, unless you own a unit, you're really kind of restricting who can go there. So that was the city and the Navy a long time ago, because we challenged that, saying, well, why can't we have some type of residential in this? And legally, we weren't allowed to unless we opened up the EIR again. We weren't going to do that, you know, after all those years. So that's a reason there's no residential. But as you know, across the street, it's, you know, BOSA is continuing to develop all along Pack Highway. So and then certainly the Marina District is pretty well all built out. So we got plenty of residential right down in that part, and Little Italy, a little farther north, is pretty much maxed out now. So the residential part in the west part of downtown.
I didn't think it out. I realize now it's yeah. I mean, just twofold. Number one, it's visitor oriented to begin with.
Yeah. And
to try to put any residential into visitor. Never mind.
Well, I mean, you could integrate it in and be very successful. Most mixed-use projects that have residential are very successful. But and quite frankly, the profitability, especially on the waterfront, you know, would have been better than office and hotel. But it wasn't allowed, so that wasn't something that we put into our planning and program. But I think, you know, in hindsight, that's at 1.3 billion. Well, it started off at 1.2, but you know, 12 years later with inflation and design refinements, we put more money into the quality of the project in terms of how the sale. Kevin's going to go into that next. But I think the valuation now is up to 1.6 billion. That's easy to do in terms of spending the money for the project. The difficulty is with that extra $300–400 million, can you justify the economics of it? That's why I was saying that extra skeleton thing. Those things, you know, would be cost prohibitive unless you were in a gambling capital of the world, Macau. You know, you couldn't do it here. Even though it would be wonderful if we could spend more money on our projects, but that's one of the difficulties in certainly San Diego. We don't have Fortune 500 companies here to speak of. We have a couple, but but Chicago and New York and San Francisco, Silicon Valley and all of that, and they have much bigger rents, or people pay more money to go to hotels, so that profitability, they can afford to put more money into the building of the projects than we can here. It's not that far off, but it's enough to kind of defines what we're allowed to do architecturally. And certainly something like that, Gensler would have loved it. If I said to Kevin and Art Gensler, do something like that, they would have loved it, and they could do it. And they've done them around the world, projects of similar quality. But let me turn it over to Kevin. He'll kind of go through all of the elements of the master plan, the architecture, and then I'll get back into a little bit about the construction.
And chime in, Perry, when you'd like. Just as towards the end of the presentation, we're going to show the demolition of this Navy building here. The Navy has moved everyone into this facility in the corner, and they will remain there until their headquarters, which is on this site, is completed. And we'll also have some construction photos of the Navy building under construction now. The piles have been driven. All of this entire project sits on a deep foundation system of piles. I think we have over 3,000 piles on the site that go down upwards of 100 feet or so. Those have pile caps on top of them, and then a mat slab. It's a bathtub. It sits in the water table because there's 2 levels of below-grade parking across the entire site. So we'll also get into some of the construction technology challenges that we've been facing. Perry's talked about the history. Obviously, a fantastic site. This shows how it kind of fits into the North Embarcadero Visionary Plan. And as you've all watched the County Administration Park get built, the setback park in front of the Rob Langford's hotels, Intercontinental, on the corner of Broadway and Harbor. I know that there's lots of conversation about what the Bayfront Wyndham will have to do in their park. But really, this shows how it ties in the North Embarcadero Visionary Plan.
Unfortunately, this plan didn't get implemented, which is typical of the way public projects go. This is a public project. But Civic and the Port had tons of workshops, lots of consultants, worked very hard on coming up with a promenade along the waterfront from really the airport all the way down to the convention center. And this is the North Embarcadero portion of that. And they only had enough money to do phase 1, which isn't even totally consistent with this, because all they did was Broadway from Pack Highway down to Harbor, and a little bit of Harbor going out to the cruise ship, and then to the Midway on Harbor Drive, and that's all they've done. Now they're back to the drawing boards. They're trying to come up with another way to do this, which is not necessarily bad, because they want to put mass transit now along this corridor. Which I think it would be, I think Don was there at the Fort the other day where they were talking about this, which would be a good thing. To do mass transit could either be fixed or rubberized, but certainly have it go all along Harbor Drive from from Harbor Island, the airport, come all the way down to the convention center. That would be a great people mover, and there's a huge demand for that. I think Coastal was always advocating that be integrated into this, so that's what the Port's doing. The other thing the Port had to do, which is another good thing, is that they didn't allow enough public open space, plazas and parks along this strip. They were, because the original one before this plan was closing Broadway and had a huge park at the foot of Broadway. But that didn't evolve and that didn't happen, so the Coastal Commission sued the Port that they were not in compliance with the original approval as they started building this. So so it's an obligation. They have to replace that lost area in the open space parks and plazas in the update of this plan. So some of it's for the better, and some of it's, first, it's taking forever to do it, which is always kind of tough when you're trying to enjoy the benefits of these public spaces. And secondly is that it's costing a lot of money that they don't have. So anyway.
So Perry spoke a lot about the design guidelines that were developed, and I think some of the key components, and we talked about opening up Marina District out to the harbor. So you can see as the streets come through Perry, you want to share the new names of the streets now?
Well, we got two of them approved. This is going to be Waterfront Place, and this is going to be Midway Court.
Which is, yeah, so G Street is the furthest south.
That'll be Waterfront
F
Place.
and E.
And then F is kind of, which comes right into the Midway, so that's, and these are just one block, you know, private streets, but they're open to the public, but they're on top of the parking garage. So we're allowed to name them because they're just small little connectors between Pack Highway and Harbor Drive. And then this street is still under naming. We're not sure what it's going to be yet. Our first choice was Pacific Place, but I guess it's already been used, so we weren't allowed to use that in that area. So we're coming up with another name there.
So that's really exciting. We'll get the city now connected back to the harbor. One of the other design guidelines restricted any vehicular access to the project from Broadway, from Pack Highway, and from Harbor. So how you enter the below-grade parking and how you enter the porte cochere and some of the other components is all through the east-west inner streets, which created some real design challenges because the amount of, there's almost 3,000 cars on 2 levels below the entire 8-block parcel. And I mentioned right now the existing Navy building is sitting here. When that gets demoed, that site will get excavated and connected. So it'll be an 8-block, 2-level below-grade parking. And it requires a significant number of ramps to manage that traffic flow. You can imagine a ballroom event in the 2AB hotel. That's the big convention center hotel. You could have, you know, hundreds of cars coming out at once. So that presented some really unique challenges in studying the traffic flows and the ingress and egress. This just kind of sets the framework, how we've taken the site. So when I use the nomenclature, the 2-block or the 3-block, you'll go with the flow through the presentation here. Starting on the north side, the 1-block, the 1A site is Manchester Plaza.
That's part of the 1.9-acre public open space requirement that was agreed to with Coastal and the city and the Navy. And so that'll be kind of an activated plaza. You know, we don't want a homeless encampment, so we're going to work with the city to come up with ongoing events and activities, which would be great. You get the cruise ships coming in, you get tourists on the waterfront. We could have, you know, like you could have an Irish band playing there this weekend, for example, and have a bunch of people come down and enjoy that. On Cinco de Mayo, you could have mariachis out there and all of that. So we could have entertainment that complement the seasons as well as making it vibrant and active. Yes.
You're talking a lot about how you're going to address visitor interests. How will you be addressing resident interests?
Well, that's a good point. And that programmatically, Kevin's going to show some retail. The bottom 2 floors in the entire master plan, about 300,000 to 350,000 square feet, will be restaurants, entertainment, the museum, other activities, all of that inline retail, all of that will be combination of visitor serving, residential based, so that you could, we've got restaurants, I mean not restaurants, food courts like Italy, if you know where Italy is. They have those in Boston, New York, and San Francisco, other cities. That's a great food court thing. That would take a huge thing that would appeal directly to all the residents nearby. We could go in there and get gourmet, and not necessarily gourmet, but high quality, you know, meats and things of that nature. Plus, you've got other, you know, we're going to put maybe a grocery store, a drugstore, you know, urban things, not your large scale kinds of retailers, but more of an urban scale to them. Yes.
Along the same line, I hear you talking a lot about it all being high-end development. Would you have any development on lower price points?
Well, it's going to be lifestyle based. Lifestyle based is based on average median income for the neighborhood downtown, coupled with visitors. So the combination of that. When you say price point, I mean, is there going to be a Trader Joe's or something like that in here? Possibly. You know, we haven't nailed all that down, but all that is part of our merchandising plan that we're putting together right now. But the key is lifestyle. Originally, it was more high-end retail. We've made it more lifestyle because high-end retail in urban neighborhoods in the last 10 years is becoming extinct. So we have to really make it more like you're saying. I wouldn't put it at you know, like a Costco type thing, but I would put it more like you know, like an urban amenity that you see in San Francisco, Chicago, New York, and places like that. That those that live in the neighborhoods can come in and enjoy it. It's affordable, and it has the product type that you can't get anywhere else downtown. That's the goal, is to merchandise it with those, plus some restaurants, obviously. You know, it's a great location for waterfront restaurants. But with 350,000 square feet of retail and entertainment and museum, that's a big amount of retail. So we're going to have, for example, what's the hamburger place at
McDonald's.
No.
Shake Shack.
Shake Shack, you know, which is cool.
I guess, you know, really to answer the question, it's a curated retail experience, and it's going to hit a whole kind of demographic, because there's more flexibility on this site than some of the other port sites. This office space can be leased to anyone. Other port sites, the office space has to be marine serving. And the retail here, I think, is going to be a really broad spectrum. There's going to be curated offerings of different types of food and beverage. You'll have, you know, a quick lunch spot, or you'll also have a higher-end dinner restaurant. So I think there will be a pretty good mix of retailers.
We've got
we've got a retail merchandising plan coming up.
We've got about 1.2 million, if you count the Navy, 1.5 million square feet of office workers. A lot of which, you know, they're not high-end spenders. They're working in there. There are some of the top executives, but we need to get a retail and food courts that they can come down and enjoy at lunchtime or after work. And that's what San Francisco has been, you know, with all the technology companies moving into downtown. A lot of them make money, but a lot of them, you know, they're entry level. And you go in there at lunchtime, and it's an active, vibrant, you know, really intense location, because it has the kind of options that the typical worker can go in there and enjoy. So you're going to see that whole mix. We can't just have one person in it. Yes?
So when you count this as 8 square blocks, that's because you put the equivalent of a street between Pacific Highway and Harbor Drive. Because there isn't a road there to make that 2 blocks.
Correct. That's a good point. That's a pedestrian, and that was part of the original agreement, that middle spine down the middle of the project, which historically was going to be a street, was pedestrian only. So that's restricted to pedestrians, but it does subdivide up to eight components of the master plan.
Normally I would see that as 4 blocks because there's no street in between Pacific
Oh,
Highway and Harbor Drive.
But your average block downtown is 200 feet by 300
That's
feet,
because we don't have any alleys.
which is 60,000 square feet blocks. And this one, the ones closer to Pac Highway are a little bigger than that, and the ones closer to Harbor Drive are a little smaller, but when you look at that right-of-way that originally was going down the middle, it's the equivalent of 8 city blocks that we're putting in.
So that middle is going to be all pedestrian?
All pedestrian, except where you're crossing at E, F, and G streets.
Okay, and in E, F, and G, I want to make sure I understand, you've got 3,000 parking spaces underneath this place.
Correct.
And they're all going to come out from those middle, from E, F, and G.
Yep.
There's no entrance from Pac Highway.
Oh yeah, there is on E, F, and G. You're
On
going to
E, F, and G.
They connect with traffic lights.
There'll be traffic lights.
We have to put traffic lights in
So
there.
you're going to have traffic lights at all of those?
Yes.
Okay, because you're going to have a lot of people, like when the workday's done, that's a lot of people.
No, it is. You're right.
And it'll be open on like the weekends when you have something special, people can park.
That's
in
public parking on nights, weekends, and holidays.
Okay.
And that was a big plus for the Midway, because they have a huge need
They
for
need
parking.
to move off of the
Back.
As you described the development program, I would imagine that this was a significant brownfield. Did you have to do significant?
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. I'll get into that towards our construction phase. I was going to talk about that a little bit, but we've been, yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
What kind of museum is it going to be?
You know, good question. We're not sure yet. We think with the proximity, because they have Veterans Park across the street, you know, between G Street where the fish market is. You've got the Bob Hope, you've got the kissing statues, you've got all those monuments right there in Harbor Drive. You certainly have the Midway. So that's one established military theme. So we were thinking maybe like a Medal of Honor museum or a Navy SEAL museum, which helps reinforce the history of the site. Or it could be like a technology museum. You know, Malin Burnham's has got some good ideas of how it could be a tech museum. So we're not sure yet. We've got another year or so before we'll nail that down. But we have some great options.
So, go ahead.
As you're describing the programming, did you reflect at all on the core neighborhood of downtown San Diego, of having hotel and office, and it being completely dead after 5 o'clock? And was that a kind of catalyst or consideration of how do you activate the program? Was that a reference point?
Absolutely.
Doing it right?
No, the key to make this successful is, and hotels really have a little opportunity for the vibrancy at night if there's a place to go. Office, so it is. They come in the morning and traditionally they'll leave at the end of the day. But I think given the proximity to the waterfront, you got the Maritime Museum, you've got the Midway, you've got all the restaurants that are already out there. You have a lot of art. The Midway gets 1.6 million people a year coming in there. The cruise ships was up to about 800,000 a year, and then with all the crime in Mexico, it dropped down to about 300. Disney now is coming back into to have a port of call here. So we're going to get a lot more business from the cruise ships. So we've got I think the population, not to mention the Marina District, which is all built out with residential. A lot of the people that live in the Marina District really don't like going to Gaslamp because that's more of a place when you're younger and want to go out and get, we all did it. I did certainly. But
St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. No, yeah. The Friendly Sons had their thing last night. But so I think the goal to make this successful is to keep it active and vibrant 24/7. I mean, you're midnight till 5 in the morning or 11 till 6, whatever that time frame is, you're not going to see much. But 7 days a week, this has got to be entertainment, place to go, hang out, and also combine it with the other waterfront activities that are already down there. Because you're getting 2 to 3 million people a year already coming to the waterfront with the cruise ships, the Midway, the dinner cruises, the water taxis, you name it. There's a lot of stuff going on the western waterfront right now.
One of the other retail tenants might be a live music type venue. So you're going to have after hours activation of those types of entertainment events.
On the design level, 2 questions. Have you got a lot of feedback from Nate Boza and the millionaires living in his super tower just behind your new hotel?
And he's got 2 more sites that are going to be built. The Office Depot site will have one there, and then one other site at Broadway.
The Lane Field Hotel towers were designed based on legal threats from the millionaires living in both towers.
Well, we're vested, so they can't.
This was all approved.
No double jeopardy.
I just wonder if they.
And they have full disclosure. They have full disclosure as they're buying their units. And quite frankly, the 300,000 to 400,000 square feet of stuff we're putting in there, they're one of the prime people that can't wait to see it happen. Because now they got something to do also.
Friends come visit, they can say.
Yeah, they can hang out there and go to a restaurant or just hit entertainment.
Second question: one of the 2 main parks, besides your corner park, will be Ruaco Park.
Yeah.
Some of the initial concepts being kicked around by the One Highway 1 group would put 3 to 4 buildings on top of the Ruaco Park site.
Right.
They're trying to, they are romancing the Ruaco fund managers at San Diego Foundation, and they say that those guys will go along with their idea. Despite the language in the contract between the port and the Ruaco Fund. Do you guys have a dog in that fight?
No, but we are watching it, but our focus is this 8 blocks. So that's been a 13-year, and fortunately, as we'll get into towards the end of this presentation with our implementation, we're just excited and focused, and the commitment's there. That's our goal right now, and that North Embarcadero, which Ruaco Park is part of that, really, in the bigger picture. So we are interested in that, but we're not going to go in there and try to Yeah, I mean, we'll do the oversight from afar. I am worried about how Harbor Drive is going to be designed, because that's fronting our property.
Right.
And so I had a meeting, when you were in your meeting with the port, I was in with, looking at the Harbor Drive. But any other, if we can get through the design part and then open it up.
So
because we won't get through this if we don't. So hold your questions and let Kevin go through this.
There were, along with the design guidelines, there were a few key urban strategies put in place. One, along upper left block morphology, was that you build to a property line, so you create the street edge, the street wall, and all those street wall heights are defined in the design guidelines. So you have to build up to that height and then set back to create the urban character that the framers of that development agreement imagined. Open space between the buildings, the Paseo connector running north-south, and of course view corridors. There's a 75-foot setback to this building face, which I imagine was done in one way to allow better views from Bosa's Tower.
Well, no, it had nothing to do with Bosa. That was designed 30
long
years
before
ago.
Bosa's Tower.
But
to allow
that setback and the Lean Field setback in combination, that created more of the open corridor to the bay from downtown. So that was set back on both sides of Broadway.
Some of the other development agreement requirements mandate retail at the ground level to activate the street. The museum space is actually this entire footprint here now. And then the heights were also mandated. So you start to the north. Perry mentioned there's a stepping down. The northernmost site has a 400-foot height limit, and then it steps down to 350, 250 feet at the Navy building, and then 150 feet height limit down. That says 135. It's actually 150 down to the. And then as you move east to west, it steps down to 120 feet in the front of the Convention Center Hotel site, 135 feet, and then 110. So those were kind of guidelines that we worked within and really started to define the envelopes. We talked about the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4 blocks. The 1 block is comprised of lower level, 2 levels of retail space. There's a conferencing, office conferencing amenity floor here, and then you've got essentially about 17 floors of office space. And those are, the unique feature of the office space on this project is each building is different shapes and sizes. So most of your downtown office building floor plates are governed by the downtown PDO, which limit the east-west tower floor plate and north-south tower floor plate dimensions. This site had the development agreement, which did not have those restrictions. So we have large floor plates for tech firms. We have smaller boutique floor plate sizes for maybe a high net worth financial advisory firm. So all different types of office floor plates. When we get down to the 4 block, we actually have a floor plate that's contiguous to 70,000 feet. So if you've seen the announcement that Apple, for instance, wants to put 1,200 jobs in San Diego, tech firms are looking for those large floor plates. We've done a lot of studies at Gensler about collaboration and effectiveness of work across larger floor plates versus interconnected smaller floor plates. So tech firms like those larger floor plates. But getting back to the basic overview here, you've got office here on the 1 block, and then you've got the boutique hotel that sits on top of it. So that hotel actually has a sky lobby. You can see that floor up there. It's got a restaurant, it's got reception. You can come into the porte cochere at the ground level, and then you're whisked up in a separate set of elevators to the sky lobby for check-in. And then you've got your amenity deck. On top of the restaurant is a swimming pool. And I don't know if you want to say what we've reserved for the top floor of that, or is that confidential?
Well, it's a hotel. The upper floor is hotel, and the bottom.
I was going to say the very, very top floor.
Yeah, so the upper floors are hotel, and the bottom is
so I think it's confidential. Good answer. The 2 block is the Convention Center Hotel, and it's 2 hotel towers. And the really dramatic feature on this one is what we call the Sky Bridge. And that was something Papa Doug dreamed up halfway through the project. And it complies with the development agreement, and we added it in. And it's going to be probably the most spectacular place to grab a cocktail and watch the sunset in San Diego. So you've got 2 hotel towers, you've got about 1,100 keys. You've got the pool deck, the amenity deck with dining, more event space, And then on this floor, which is we call it the bridge floor, connects across the Paseo. It's got the grand and junior ballrooms. So it's going to have the largest grand ballroom in San Diego at about 55,000 square feet. Have a junior ballroom. We've got an exhibit hall on the second level, retail space throughout. The museum entry would be right here. And then you can see the Paseo connects underneath there. This is really the only portion of the site where the Paseo becomes a covered experience, but it's still naturally ventilated outdoor space. There'll be escalators in here that come up from the valet drop-off and the parking below. And then moving down to the 3 block, the east side is the Navy facility. The west side is a office building with speculative office, and right now Manchester's out trying to secure leases with tenants on that building. It has some neat features. It's got some private deck space where we're required to step back the building in different areas. So you've got terraces that office tenants can have for their private use that overlook the harbor. You've got terraces that could actually be for a restaurant space or an office user that also overlook the harbor. A great dining experience we have there. And you've got the larger upper terraces. We're seeing a big trend in outdoor terrace space for office use, where they're creating outdoor conferencing, different we call it activity-based work environments, where you could go outside, take a call, have a meeting. You could even probably, in some cases, if there's a fitness facility, there'll be outdoor fitness space. And then the 4 block is primarily office, and we've got some better images of it. And it's got an incredible rooftop component that could be some type of event space, and even depending on how the leasing goes, it could be a really great music venue. And here you can see that view from the south of that roof deck I was talking about here. One concept that we're exploring, you can see it's kind of a pool is shown here now, but that pool would have a retractable floor that comes up, and it becomes a plaza space for events. That's driven by a unique operator that has a concept that they might do there. It's not for sure, but it could be pretty interesting. This is the building that has the large floor plates that actually connect across. So this could be office space up on this 3rd level here that connects over to the 3rd level here. This building steps back to respond to, again, a lot of the step requirements in the urban design guidelines, and it happens to create a lot of outdoor terrace and office space. And interestingly enough, there's a BOMA standard that tells you how you measure office space, and just in 2017, the BOMA standard created an opportunity for landlords to rent outdoor space to tenants. So we'll see how the market adapts to that. Clearly it'll be a great differentiator to attract tenants here, and if they can get additional rent for it.
Will the retail spaces address the street, or will they be internally focused?
So that's a great question. I think I've got a slide coming up that shows that. But essentially, you remember back to that slide, the design guidelines, the retail levels have to activate all 4 sides and the internal Paseo. So you've got retail that's going to front Harbor Drive. You have other types of retail on Pack Highway. We have retail in Paseo. So it's really meant to activate all 4 sides of every block. Yeah.
To get some understanding. Sorry. And Mike's quick. Are these buildings going to be pinkish? Because that's how they're always painted up.
Rose. That's a great question. We're exploring different types of limestone right now. One of the limestones that we're looking at, when you flame it, it has a soft rose color come out. I don't think any of these renderings yet capture the final effect. We're going to be building mock-ups. In fact, we have mock-ups being built right now underway that are, we're going to test some of the final material palettes.
And the key, I think, is to have kind of a generalized, a color scheme that can vary slightly from building to building. So it establishes an overall campus look, but it's not identical all the way through it. And so that's why these haven't been adjusted yet, because we're still doing material mock-ups and how to come up with variations that will look good as it's complete. Gets
but you're looking at a pink or a rose tone.
Yeah, we think that's. I mean, if you look at some of the historical buildings, and that was the color
like
that they
the
had.
county building.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and Papa Doug really likes the county administration building, and challenged us to take some inspiration from that in the design.
Big discussion yesterday at the port about how to clean up the intersection where on the G Street Mall, because they have a situation where you have pedestrians going across in two different places, so as you're turning into the parking lot on the mall.
Yeah, you've got the promenade,
you're running
the Embarcadero walkway, and you've got the sidewalk walkway.
So I see you've got some sort of plaza there on the opposite side.
Well, actually, that's a street.
Or is that your hotel?
That's G Street, and G Street, by the development agreement, was required to be quite a bit wider than E and F.
Okay.
And that creates a great third, because G Street just runs east and connects right out to 94.
I think they were talking about putting a light in that intersection.
We will put a light in, and we have to pay for that light as part of our project.
Okay.
If I could ask quickly, initially it was mentioned this is a public-private partnership, is that correct? How, foreseeing the amount of money generated going back to the city, how much of this project do you think is actually going to benefit public coffers, not just?
Well, first of all, the public-private it's a Navy public-private. So that the Navy is getting a free Class A office building, and that particular block is, once we finish the construction, is deleted from the master plan. So we have the other 7 blocks, including the plaza and the parking underneath, but the Navy then takes ownership of their block, and that stays as federal land.
You can't see this as a revenue stream for the city.
No, just you don't let me finish. But then there's TOT off the hotel revenue. TOT goes right into the city. That's the best revenue that the city gets because it's not earmarked for a specific use. Then you get sales tax off the retail. Then you get property tax, which goes into the region. And so those are the direct revenues that go into the city and the county. So
You may have been following in the press what SPAWAR is looking to do. So that would be very similar to what Perry described this process was, where Navy would like to see if there's developer interest in redeveloping the SPAWAR site in exchange for providing Naval Base Point Loma the facility they need. That building's obsolete. They do electronics engineering and a small bit of assembly and research there, and it's really suitable for office use. They don't want to be in an airplane hangar that were used to fabricate bombers. So it'll be interesting to follow that, and you can put that in the context of how this project developed. Yes?
Are there any plans for a fitness center, LA Fitness?
There's talks with several fitness operators to come on site.
We have good interest there, and we would put a state-of-the-art, great facility that you see in, again, these other big cities. They want to come in here because of the density. So that's when our retail is going to be phenomenal, because there's a huge demand by putting all of this space right in this location, coupled with not a lot of amenities over in the west part of downtown. So right now on Building 1, which is up by Broadway and Pacific, that second level, we're going to have a huge 30,000 square foot, very well, contemporary spa and gym that's going to be in there.
Midway, under its coastal development permit, has required to replace the parking on Navy Pier with a veterans park. They're fighting that. One of their alternatives, and one of the things they're supposed to do, is find upland parking to clear the parking off, most of the parking off that pier. Have they talked with you, and is there anything going on in terms of those 3,000 parking spaces you're going to have, where Midway could rent some of those parking spots from you?
Well, as we know, the Admiral Mac, as we like to call him, from the day one that we first got this 13 years ago, wanted us to accommodate his need for parking.
I know.
The bad news is the development agreement capped out how much parking we can put in here. So we're maximized. It has to be a transportation demand management site. So the office tenants are going to have carpooling, vanpooling. We're going to have to, as they're leased up, they're going to have to give transit programs for their employees to take the coaster. We're a Todd site, with the Santa Fe and the coaster and the trolley, just kitty corner from the site. That's going to be a big plus. So anyway, we were capped. We really don't have enough parking for our project with the office in a perfect world. Over time, it should be fine, but until we transition more into transit as a region, there's a big demand downtown for parking. So the bottom line is, nights, weekends, and holidays, we can provide some parking for Matt. He said, that's great, but I need it Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. I said, good luck and finding it. It's not going to be easy, but I know that's his challenge, and we'll support him. We love it.
I was going to say, it looks to me like it's a supplemental revenue stream to you guys, if there's a way you could work it out.
But we couldn't do it Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. We're going to be challenged with our parking as it is. We hope we're challenged, you know, because that means everything's working, that people are coming into the retail, our office is full, our hotels are booked. So, you know, when we're fully connected and operating and successful, we won't have a lot of extra spaces.
Architecture. Who's designing the Navy building? Is Gensler? And if Gensler isn't, who is their architect?
So we're the architect for the entire project. The Navy building design was initiated with one of the other architectural team partners early on in the project. And Perry mentioned this project started 13, 14 years ago on the design. There was another local firm that was working with the Navy initially, and then we're now working with them. So I'd say it's a collaborative design between two firms for the Navy. But we're now the architect of record and executing the interiors design as well as the architectural design. Yes?
Will there be any public services offered?
In terms of, like, what, could you elaborate a bit on what type of public services, perhaps?
In terms of, I mean, even something as basic as helping residents find places to live that may or may not be nearby.
Well, I mean, we're not a residential-focused mixed-use development, and if there was something like that, and there was an entity that wanted to offer that, they could lease some space. It wouldn't be, they'd have to lease some space if they wanted to provide that kind of service.
So it's all private.
Well, yeah, but they would be allowed to come in and pay for it. Even the city could come in and rent space from us if they wanted to and provide any services they have.
But it's essentially all private development.
But yeah, it's 100% private, yeah. Except for the Navy building, which is kind of standalone.
Does your presentation have a timeline? Are we going to come up to a timeline about when everything is going to happen?
Well,
yes, yeah, let's kind of go through this.
We could talk about that because it's interesting right now.
We'll never get done if we, let's try to finish this up. And then we'll go further questions. So this is going. No, it's a good question. I'm not saying that, but unfortunately, I think Roger's looking at his watch and we got to.
So this is the retail merchandising plan. The orange color is what we envision as food and beverage. The pinker color is really traditional retail. So you can see the variety of size tenant shops. We also have kiosk opportunities for coffee carts or even like a champagne sipping kiosk. Who knows? The Navy building is interesting in that it has its own dedicated ingress and egress. It has a security control point on G Street. So the Navy employees will come in on G, come down, and then they'll come out on F Street. And their facility is all designed to meet the ATFP setback requirements. It's hardened, so it's bomb-proof to a certain level that we've designed to. The structural system, the cladding system, it's got laminated triple-layer glass on the lower levels to address that. So it's designed with all those safety standards in mind. Although it is open, so people can walk right through to the Navy Plaza, so it's not fenced in. That was one of the key drivers to make sure the building integrated with the neighborhood and wasn't a fortress that was walled off. Some interesting things to point out here. The one block with the hotel on top of the office has a porte cochere, so you can come in and valet your car if you're office or hotel user. The idea is if you're an office user in this building, you can take advantage of some of those hotel amenities. You could have lunch catered at a business meeting from the hotel in your office, or you could go up to the hotel and use all those types of amenities. You could have visitors staying in the hotel if you have business out of town visitors. The building also has a lobby on Broadway side, which is really the ceremonial pedestrian office lobby, so you could come in through there, get on the elevator banks and go up. There are ramps that go down to parking, actually right here on this side, so you could valet and then take the cars down. So that block, each block has its own ingress and egress ramps. There's a more elaborate porte cochere for the big convention center hotel with quite a bit more queuing space, and it has ramps on the upper left and upper right that go down and come up. This block also has an egress and entrance for self-park down here. If you don't want to valet, there'll be signage that directs you to self-park here. This is also probably the main entry for a retail visitor that will be directed through site signage to park down here. At the bottom of this ramp is access to the valet area, and the valet has escalators that come up right into the Paseo right here.
Kevin, can I ask a question about the parking? Do you mean that the entire parking garage of 2 floors would be from all the way from north to south?
All north south.
I mean, it's gigantic parking.
These streets go right over top of the parking below, but we've organized it with there's actually a main north-south circulation that's under the Paseo. So we spent a great deal of time making sure the garage is going to be friendly, easily navigable, not a maze that you get lost in.
Name it fruits and vegetables and things.
Not like Horton Plaza.
How would you find your way out? It's just going to be
But on the parking,
yes.
There'd be parking for the Navy building also, would that be separate?
The whole Navy facility is separated below grade with the same blast-proof construction, so that it's protected. And another interesting feature is the lobby bar and lobby lounge in the Convention Center Hotel stretches from the porte cochere all the way to the Paseo. So it engages and activates the Paseo space. You've got also a through lobby on the 3 block that's envisioned. We've got some interior renders that will show you. It's envisioned to be activated with food, so it's not a stale, unactivated, stone cold lobby space. It's actually a space that food and beverage flows in, and there's seating, lounge seating. You've probably been to more contemporary office buildings. You'll see the evolution of the office lobby over the years, where it's not a kind of a cold, unactivated space anymore.
How much more we have on the presentation?
Quite a bit.
So let's keep going.
The museum.
We got to go through this pretty quick.
Okay.
We're out of time.
Kevin, one question. I noticed in the last walls around the Navy building, is it going to be like the White House?
Those are low planters. What you saw there.
Well, but there's something to keep terrorists from running in and out.
Yeah, exactly. Not running in and out. Their vehicles will be blocked. Absolutely. That meets the federal standard. You could do it through bollards, through planter boxes,
Is it going to be like the White House? Are they going to have landmines under the lawn?
That's an interesting
He can't tell you.
comparison.
Yeah, if he tells you, you have to.
And the other interesting thing about the project timeline is there are parts of this project that we're still designing while it's under construction, because we started in the middle and we've designed the initial 2 blocks in the middle earlier, and then the project grew to encompass the entire project in one phase. So each site is at a different phase of design, although all of them are in the city for foundation permits right now. And the Navy is obviously moving forward the fastest. So this is an overhead view of the park. Kind of shows there's going to be a public process or a civic engagement process for the evolution of this park design that's going to happen. But this is where it stands right now.
And what's the distance from Harbor Drive to the west door to the hotel?
From Harbor to there?
Yeah.
That's probably about a little over 200 feet, maybe 250 feet.
Yeah, about
That's what we tried to get the linear park on the other side of Broadway to be.
I know.
But
you got 150 over there.
Yeah. They call it the Padre Park, or whatever they call it.
Well, because the county administration center is 205 feet from Harbor Drive.
Right.
So we tried to make it 205
So
from
the whole
there
thing would come all the way
to
down,
yours.
yeah.
Would have been a nice park.
It would have.
So this is a view standing on the Paseo in front of the one office building, and then you can see through the covered part of the Paseo. This is a bridge connection that comes from meeting space over to the exhibit hall on that level. And now we're just going to kind of run through each block by block. You can start to see some of the retail renderings we're developing. This shows what an Apple store might look like there. You asked about a fitness, maybe. Equinox might be the type of fitness tenant that comes in.
They do want to go in.
This was a pitch.
Do we want them in or not?
And so that they would have an entry on the ground level, but their fitness space would be mostly on the second floor. This is a view from the park looking at, you can see this is the hotel office lobby entrance, has an entrance that connects out to the park, but then it also has a flagship retail space on the corner.
Let's go through this pretty quick now.
Yeah, plan of that. We don't have to go into detail. These are some studies we're going through right now in the Port Cochere, the hotel lobby entry, some ideas about how the reception and arrival might work for the hotel. This is a conferencing, actually no, I'm sorry, this is the sky lobby floor with check-in, restaurant, outdoor terrace, lobby bar. These are some studies of the interior of that hotel. One of the names we're thinking about is Anastasia. Manchester has its own hotel operation, and this might be a unique 5-star branded hotel that is a new brand that comes out of the Manchester group. Some design studies we're going through right now on that hotel lobby bar. There's a conferencing and ballroom space on that third level, and some guest room studies of how the guest rooms might begin to be developed. The Convention Center Hotel, which would be more of a 4-star market rate hotel. We're in interior design on that right now as well. And I won't go into a lot of the detail of the plans, but we spoke a little bit about that. That's the exhibit hall and meeting room floor. Here you see the 2 ballrooms, the grand ballroom facing the water that'll have a pre-function space with incredible harbor views. A little clip from our Revit model showing the 3-dimensional configuration of that lobby lounge that connects out to Paseo we talked about. This might be the view of the wall behind check-in. Some studies of that lobby bar and lounge, what it might start to look like, and some of the hotel experiences. The pool deck, and looking at how to activate that, and look at the different types of food and beverage opportunities that might ultimately be developed there. The Skybridge floor, and some thoughts about the lobby bar on either side of the Skybridge, how that gets developed, different flexible seating layouts we're exploring for the Skybridge, some lobby bar studies. The 3 site is one of the office buildings, 9-story. This shows the lobby entry, and this is that concept of how the lobby really opens up to the food and beverage and retail spaces on either side, so it's a very active lobby. It doesn't feel like a stale office lobby space. Start to see how we're developing that, even lounge seating in the lobby. This is the view from the back of that building looking down the Paseo. You can see the Navy building to the right. The Navy building is 17 stories, and it's coming out of the ground right now. These are some renderings of that building. It's precast concrete cladding to address the blast concern. This is some of the inspiration from the interiors. And this is a view of inside the lobby. Obviously a lot of security there. Little break room on one of the upper levels. And this shows how they're going to configure the office space. They've got office standards that we have to follow with different size workstations. There are We pulled the offices inboard with glass fronts, and then that frees up the perimeter space for the open plan. So this is really designed with the office, with the Navy office design standards, driving a lot of the design. Here you can see, we talked about that foundation shot.
Are we deciding the construction phase now? Are you done?
I think we're going to hit the 4 block first.
Okay, we'll hit the 4 block and come back, and I'll do this.
Okay. This is there's also an entry to the 4 lobby off of the corner there of Harbor and Pack Highway. It too has its own porte cochere. Actually, I think a slide coming up that you can access off of G Street, come in, and then go directly down a ramp to the parking. And then this shows how you might lay out a concert venue on that event deck. You can fit about almost 1,000 seats up there. The porte cochere entry that we're studying right now. And these are some lobby concepts from this building. Again, it feels more like a hotel lobby than it does an office lobby. And it will be engaged with community tables, touchdown, Wi-Fi. You can work in the lobby if you're coming to visit someone. And then we've got a little piece on the Paseo that just talks about the character of the Paseo as you move through the project. You can see the escalators coming up from below. Working with our landscape architect, studying preserved trees versus real trees, see what will live in that space. Some of the kiosk concepts we're developing. A lot of seating and outdoor areas in the Paseo to relax. This was a study we did with a screen wall, a water feature wall to provide some relief from the Navy building to the Paseo. And construction.
All right, we can go back to that if we need to, but any good questions on the design before we just kind of go into the construction? In the back?
Is the Sky Bridge a public walkway?
No, you have to get into the hotel to get up there. I mean, it'll be open to the public, like if you went to the top of the Hyatt right now, that's open to the public. But it's not part of a public connectivity to anywhere.
But you can walk into the hotel and go up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's open to the public, but it's not, your traditional a requirement in the entitlements to provide through access like we had on the Hyatt. Remember, we had to have, Don knows, I think, but we had to have that open space connected through a portion of phase 1 and phase 2 of the Hyatt. We don't have any of those restrictions here.
We think there's going to be a lot of wedding proposals, marriage proposals up on that Sky Bridge at sunset.
And anniversary, dinners and drinks and things.
Yeah, Glenn.
I was wondering, having to activate all 4 sides of these buildings, deliveries and service must have been an interesting challenge. How did you handle that?
It set up a lot of challenges, and each building does have a dedicated loading dock that's screened from the street with a very fast operating door that closes off. But it was quite a feat, and there's some compromises on how it works, but we've got it to a point where it's working, but definitely trying to minimize the number of curb cuts, provide the level of service a project this size needs from loading and deliveries. There'll be probably a lot of the retail tenants, there'll be after hours off-street loading, but there'll be a management plan to control when the delivery trucks are coming and going from each of the projects.
Kevin, all of the large renderings that I've seen are from the south and the west, and you were talking about the design of the Pacific Highway portions. Are there renderings?
I don't have any in here, but we do have some views from Pack Highway that show that. Yeah.
I'd like to see those. I'll talk to you after that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, you want to do the video first on this and we come back to the slide?
Yeah, we could do that.
This is a demo that we, had to tear down some buildings, so it's just like a 30-second little quick demo, but
Here's
just more than
the-
30 seconds to take this building down. This was built to withstand a direct hit, thinking that the submarines were coming into the bay in World War II. So this was designed after that. It was an extremely large challenge, and nobody got hurt, no injuries. And this was an amazing task by our AMG, was our demolition contractor, who has their headquarters in San Diego, and they live in Point Loma. But they were,
I think
they were going to hire somebody to do demo of something big, large,
The interesting thing is they had to crane up. If you see here, they craned the excavators up, and they took the building down from the top. There was an initial thought that we might be able to implode the building with explosives, but after the analysis from the implosion demo subcontractor said, you can't do that on this building. It's built too strong. We just can't simply do it.
We don't have big enough bombs.
Big enough bombs. but what was great is when they did the demo, Manchester took a lot. This was an old square rebar bars, and they cut them up and had them as souvenirs from the demolition. So it's pretty neat.
What percentage of the materials got reused or
All the concrete was taken to a recycling area, and the steel too, which most of this was steel and concrete.
So you just take it from the top down, and then we also have.
Well, when we eventually build the Navy building, and we empty the existing Navy building, put it in the new building. That's the second building we're going to tear down. That was built even probably stronger than this building. That one was 100 years old. This one we tore down was right after, it was 1943. I think they started construction on it. We finished it in 44.
So this next video is a little time lapse of digging the hole.
This is the phase we're in right now. That's an older video. Now, if you went up there, you'd see the entire. Well, we go back to that Navy construction foundation area, but getting back to the, it is a brownfield. It's a CERCLA type site, and so we knew that through our phase 1, phase 2, we had a certain amount of different types of soil types that you had to address and take to different types of dump sites and all of that. So our site management plan that we filed with the county and the state, which is still in place, but that particular plan had so many, cubic yards of different categories of dirt, of which the worst is the lead-based, and that has to go up to Nevada. There's only a few sites that you can take that. It's very expensive to export that off. The truck delivery takes forever to get there to Nevada. And the cost to dump it on those sites, because there aren't many around, so they charge you a lot per dump truck to dump it. So we ended up getting maybe 3 times more amount of cubic yards, which is not a lot of cubic yards, but given the cost, is about a $3 million hit to the project. And it slows us down a little bit because that processing is, much more restricted, and the testing and the preparation and how you transport it, it's a little more expensive. So, but we're through probably 95% of that particular type of dirt. The rest of the dirt looks pretty normal. So we're excited that as we continue to go, we can do so. But you can see here on the amount of there's 271,000 cubic yards of dirt, and that's like, I think 1 cubic yard's a little bit more than a ton. So it's about 300,000 tons of dirt that we're taking off of this site. And then we had to put sheeting all the way in. Sheeting is a shoring system. So what the shoring system does is that on all the streets going around the entire project, then we had to get both sides of the Navy building with this shoring. So we dug down about 34 feet with these steel sheets that then allow you to take the dirt out. So that supports all the streets and the dirt on the outside of our project site.
And then we're digging down in that, and then we put in what they call tiebacks. So once you get down about 35 to 10 feet, 15 feet, you pretty much put a nail in the top of these sheets underneath each of the streets, about 30 feet in. That stabilizes those, so as your dirt comes down and the shore doesn't fall over. So it's an expensive, time-consuming, but very efficient system in terms of being able to get in and take the dirt out. And then when we take all the dirt out and we build the buildings out, we then detension the rods that go in the street so that they're no longer active, and then the building itself permanently withstands the below grade. And you can't de-water permanently. So the entire 8 blocks is built like a bathtub. So we're going down and waterproofing it completely, which we'll see that shot now, but the waterproofing is an unbelievably expensive and sophisticated system, because once you put the buildings up and you release the dewatering for construction, and that pressure mounts to, the water wants to start pushing back up underneath the parking garage, if you have a leak, you don't know where it is. Because say there was a leak here, because this didn't get welded and installed properly, by the time the water surfaced in the garage, it could show up over here or over here. You just never know where it's going to surface. So we are spending a ton of money on not only the system, which Gensler designed, but the inspection of it. The inspection is, we've got inspectors watching every aspect of each piece that goes in. And once they put this in, and these are the piles that are going to support the columns going up, but once they put this in, then they put the concrete topping on top of this. And that concrete topping then protects the waterproofing, and then on top of that concrete topping goes the bottom of the parking garage. Concrete floor will go on top of that, which we've already poured. Most of this that you're seeing here has already been poured with the parking garage on it. And now we're getting ready to build the second level, or the first level down floor. So this is P2, the bottom of the garage, and we're framing right now and getting ready to pour the P1 in the garage of the Navy.
Here you can see one of those sheets, the steel sheets Perry talked about. They're about 1 inch thick solid steel, and they have a machine that vibrates, and it pushes the 54-foot-long sheet down into the ground just by vibrating it. It's pretty incredible. And that gets into the clay soil layer and actually almost embeds into that and creates a barrier. And then there are, I don't know how many dewatering wells, but they're...
Well, this is part of the dewatering system that goes around. And you can see these white, can you point up there, those little white tanks?
The water
white
treatment,
tanks
water
next to the
treatment
red.
tanks.
That's the treatment. So every bit of the water we suck out of this site has to be treated, purified, and then it can go back in the bay. So we're sucking it out of the bay, but we're not allowed to take it back into the bay unless we treat it to be perfectly clean drinking water. So that's, if you go up right now, technically by the State Water Control Board and the state guidelines, if you go up there and just take a cup of water and take it out, and then you decide to put that water back in, you're not allowed to do that. Technically, you're not allowed to do that. You have to treat it. Don?
I noticed you were doing a lot of ditching on the other side.
Yeah.
Dr. Rockefeller at San Diego State did a study, and there was an article on the front page of the Union Tribune indicating that the Rose Canyon Fault extends south directly through the Navy Broadway complex. What did you find when you did your seismic studies? Did you find any active faults on the site? Is that going to affect any of the design?
Well, that's an excellent question, and was one of the issues that came up in the litigation initially. The first rounds of litigation dealt with that did we properly address the seismic. So that required us to go in and do very extensive additional borings and trenchings and analysis to see if we could find faults. So we went the north side of the property up by Broadway. We went to the south side of the property along Harbor. Went north, went east-west trenches where we could. We did a bunch of borings. We did other isolated locations throughout the site, and everything came out negative. Now that was one part of the requirements. The second part of the requirements is as we're doing this, the city geologist requires ongoing, we have a geologist that goes out there and tests this to make sure that we don't further discover a fault as we're building it. The Navy footprint, which is all dug and completed, came up negative. That was a good sign. But we have to continue that for the rest of the other blocks. But when you looked at their projection, when they came up with that diagram, because this part was never really explored, they kind of knew where it was coming across the bay from Coronado as it went north-south, and then it stopped, as you know, and then they were projecting different options. When they did the old police headquarters, they did hit sea default, and that was a new baseline, a new data.
That was directly south of your site.
Yeah.
But that was actually on Pack Highway. When you looked at where because the old police headquarters is east of Pack Highway.
Gotcha.
So that's where they saw it, just right there in the eastern boundary of Pack Highway, which is right over here.
Right.
So if you project that north-south, BOSA didn't find it in his. Lane Field didn't find it in theirs. We didn't find it here. I don't know where it is.
Well, it does go through the Seaport site.
It could be in the middle of Pack Highway is what we're thinking.
Yeah, well, Seaport found it on their site, but I believe it went up like Pacific Highway.
That's what I'm
Although
saying, yeah.
They're also thinking there might be one under Rocco Park.
Yeah, but they didn't, that might be, but no, we're forced to do this, as you know. I mean, we don't have a choice. We have to continue the analysis with the city geologist. Any other questions? So I think, this is 13 years in the making. Once we won it, Papa Doug came to me and he said, of course back then it was Doug, but he goes, "Harry, damn it, you told me this was fully approved, fully entitled, and we're ready to go." And 13 years later, fortunately for me, I guess, and I've been on this project the entire time as a development manager for the ownership. And I've gotten all the entitlements, got all the permits, I'm managing the construction, I'm managing the architecture, I'm managing the entire project. And once we started construction, things have been going the way they should. So that doesn't mean we don't have problems every day, but they're normal construction problems.
Maybe one more question I just want to ask, and that is, now that you're under construction and you have coming out of the ground, what is the tenant interest in moving in, because it's like a year away or something for them?
Well, it's interesting because office markets, first of all, the hotel part, there's three components to what our revenue stream's based on. Hotel, four components. Hotel, retail, parking, and office. So the hotel, there's a huge demand where nobody has any question that these hotels will be very successful. All the studies, we did the Hyatt and the Marriott. We know how they work, so we're very comfortable that the hotels will be very successful. The retail is off the charts. We got multiple options with lots of tenants that want to come into this property. So those leases will be no issues. The parking, just as we were talking about earlier, I mean, there's not enough parking on the western waterfront. So the parking is going to be not only with the tenants during 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, but nights, weekends, and holidays, the parking is going to be a very successful part of it. So the big unknown, the big issue is how do you put 1.1 million square feet of Class A office and feel comfortable, since there's not really been anything in the last, 10 or 15 years built. The last one was Diamond View, next to Petco Park, which has been extremely successful. It is 98% leased up with a waiting list for the larger spaces, and it's at a pro forma rate that is very, very high for downtown. So that's one litmus test that we think we're going to be successful. Until you get an occupancy date on office, you cannot really pre-lease, because a lot of tenants are moving from one location into another. They can't terminate their lease or wait around with their lease is going to expire, which is really what they're doing. They don't really terminate it. They just don't renew it when their lease expires. But if they don't know when our building is going to open, they can't commit. So Kevin and I have been working with different law firms. We did a 3-4 law firm in one of the buildings, laid it all out. We had a biotech company that wanted to take a lot of one of the buildings, and we laid out their plan, but we had no occupancy date. So now we do have an occupancy date, and we think the technology world is evolving into other markets except for out in the suburbs, even though Apple just signed a big deal in the suburbs. But, you know, Google, Facebook, you know, companies like that, Amazon, they will have a San Diego presence, and we would be a great location because their workforce, with all of the millennials that want to be downtown, that's their workforce. So their workforce, you know, wants to be in close proximity to their offices, which would be great because that's really what the downtown plan is all about, is to get it's a work-live environment. Work, live, and play, and enjoy, and have culture, and all the amenities that an urban environment has. We just don't have a big workforce down here yet. Residential's exploding, on fire. Continue to have a lot of permits in the pipeline for more residential. But the office, you know, this is the first, there's a Lankford project in East Village, and that's you know, an option for office. And then you've got Fosis, the old Palladium building that they're going to convert into an office, and then of course Horton Plaza. That would be a tech campus. So those are all forthcoming. We are now ready for business. We're open, we have occupancy dates, and if you know anybody that wants to come into a great mixed-use project, we'd love to see you.
So what's the occupancy
Yeah,
date?
when is it?
What's that?
What's the occupancy date?
Well, it depends on which building. You know, buildings 3 and 4 will be sooner. That's probably somewhere towards the end of 2020. And then building 1, which is the other office building, would be towards the end of 2021.
One of your slides said construction starts on a Navy building August 1st of last year.
Yes.
Is that where the concrete's going?
Yes, that was all of the excavation and the shoring and all of that, and the piles and all of that.
Looking at the site, it looks like that's Navy building.
That's all Navy. Everything you're seeing there is all Navy. It's a big footprint. We were just out there yesterday, and it's amazing how much more is done than what this is showing.
And we need to get that done first so that the Navy folks can move out of their facility to demo that.
Are you doing tours of the construction site?
No. No, we have an OSHA, which is an insurance program for safety. Knock on wood, we don't have any injuries and things, but we have to be very protective of that. Our insurance company restricts public out there.
I don't know if you can answer this, but the bottom line question. Since you've gone from 1.3 to 1.6 billion dollars, we keep hearing that funding is a problem to finish that up. So is that just idle gossip?
No, any big project has an incremental funding requirement. So that, getting back to phasing, you know, right now we're trying to do the whole project at once. We may just reduce some of the buildings and say just do block 2, 3, and 4 and leave 1 for later. Block 1 for later. Yeah, so that's a normal, you know, complexity of the wonderful world of being a developer. You know, it's a lot of risk, but.
So you're just building until you get more funding.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got enough in place to keep going. That's not the issue. It's just that to be able to finish 100% of the project all at one time, which we may or may not want to do even if we get all the funding in. Because we want to pre-lease the office, and the one building has got the most office space in it. So we may want to do 3 and 4 first, which are office, get those substantially leased up, and then trigger the one building, so that would fall right in. Plus, the one building would have more of the other amenities already in place as we start leasing that, which would be another big demand generator for the office market.
Well, I have one last question. That is, on opening day, can our group come for a little walk around tour?
Absolutely. You're all invited.
Drinks on the Sky Bridge.
Yeah, drinks on the Sky Bridge.
Well, I would like to give a little credit. We've got an amazing local team of other consulting engineers on the project team. So we wanted to keep it local. We've got 2 structural engineers, Hope Engineering, which is now Kaufman, and KPFF are our 2 structural engineers that work collaboratively together on the project. We have 2 mechanical engineering firms, MA, Michael Akavon's firm, and Paul McParlane's firm, McParlane Engineering. Michael Wall is the electrical engineer. We have 2 landscape architects, KTUNA and Office of James Burnett. We've got a great civil engineer, project design consultants, PDC, Greg Shields, and that's really the other key team members. The
other 2 key team members that are on my team, not so much on Kevin's, is the environmental consultant, which deals with all the hazmat and all that. That's SCS, and they've done all kinds of work downtown. And then Geocon, which does the seismic and all of that stuff. So those are both San Diego-based companies as well.
Well, Kevin and Perry, thank you so much for giving up your Saturday morning for us. And I'm sure you gave us more detail than almost anybody I bet has gotten in your other presentations. So I want to give you 2 copies of the Kevin Roach architecture book.
Beautiful, thank you.
Do one more? Oh, you got it? Okay, good.
So thanks again.
Thanks, Roger.
We'll see you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Roger.